Refusal of food, water, or statements like "I'm not hungry" is another sign or indication that death is approaching. When it comes to the dying process, the body no longer needs food to continue, right? The body, this is part of the body's own intelligence in understanding what's happening in the death and dying process, that we don't actually need food any longer. Now, how long does it take to die once a person stops eating in a hospice situation? It varies. The answer is always, when it comes to timelines, is that it varies. But most people die within about 10 days. And it depends on other factors. Their disease, how far along they are in that process, how well they're hydrated, how long have they been sick. And so we can't give it a particular answer, but within days, several days to even several weeks. Now, this should not be confused with the voluntary stopping of eating and drinking. Unfortunately, again, because of our laws in this country that are completely incompassionate, in some states, we do legally allow medical aid in dying. So people that choose to end their suffering with the help of a physician can do that and make their passing very comfortable. We have that option. In some states, we do not have that option legally. So some people do choose to stop eating and drinking voluntarily to hasten their own death, to end their suffering. That's very different than your loved one who just physically doesn't feel hunger anymore. And so this can be very difficult for loved ones. Again, if you're coming from the perspective I'm very much alive and I have this survival instinct, it can be very scary when your loved one stops eating or says I'm not hungry, and they get annoyed with people trying to make them eat. They may no longer actually feel physically hungry. Their body is telling them I don't want food anymore. I don't need that. So what happens is, if a person who's in this situation is fed or forced to eat, it becomes actually very uncomfortable for their body. Their body doesn't want to devote the time and energy to digesting the food. So we can actually get into a situation, especially with like things like feeding tubes, where we would cause more harm and more suffering than is needed. And we can end up with things like intestinal blockages, or a person, and you experience this yourself. If you're not hungry and you have to eat something, like somebody says, "Oh, I made this, will you eat it?" And then you don't want to hurt their feelings, so you eat it, then you feel uncomfortably full, right? But that feeling of fullness can actually translate to someone who's cognitively not completely present. That feeling of bloating or fullness can actually make them feel trapped, or like they can't breathe. So it makes them feel even more uncomfortable. So making someone eat who doesn't feel hungry, just like when you don't feel hungry, makes you uncomfortable, it also makes them uncomfortable. But in a different way, your body eventually will process that food and digest that food. But in a person who's dying, they're transitioning, right? Their energy is transitioning to focus on the dying process and not the digestion process that we need to keep us alive. And again, this is so hard for someone who's very much in the realm of living, and I still have my survival instincts. If you have ever had a pet that stops eating, you may all of a sudden go in panic, because you instinctively know that refusal of food is an indication that the dying process has begun, or something's not quite right with health, right? It's just a normal part of the dying process, and it's hard to get your head around it if you're very much living. But again, that's part of why we're learning about the death and dying process. That making someone eat who isn't hungry, and you can relate to this, that isn't hungry, makes them suffer more. It makes them uncomfortable. And we are trying to be helpful, right? Food is very much a part of a way that we connect in our families and our cultures, right? We share time together around food. It can be a way to express care and love. And so if you don't know how to help a loved one as they're dying, as they're transitioning, your first impulse might be to care for them through food, right? To nurture them through food, to give them sustenance. And when you're sick, it's very much important to have things like soup, right? To keep you hydrated, to keep your electrolytes up, to give you the fuel that your body needs to repair and to help you get over this sickness. However, at end of life, that's not happening. There isn't going to be a return. No amount of food is going to help your loved one repair the process that is dying. It's not going to happen. And so our instinct is, because we've only been in the realm of the living and life, is to help comfort and nurture that person through food. But they no longer need that food. So what's happening with loved ones who are trying to force people to eat is they know that, oh, you're dying, or that you're not eating. And so the solution here is to eat, to gather your strength so that you don't die. But the fact is that person, that your loved one, is dying. And so they don't need it, and not helping, but trying to force them to eat is not actually helping. It's causing more suffering. And so then we have to look at why we're doing that. Again, you're doing it because you want to comfort them, you want to nurture them, right? But it's not actually the kind and compassionate thing to do. The kind and compassionate thing to do is to trust their body's intelligence that they don't need the food anymore, and that we're in a different stage of the process. Right? And so by making food and forcing people to eat, we are trying to control the situation, right? This is about making you feel better, to lessen your anxiety. And that's appropriate at this time, is to find things and ways to help you process what's happening. It's important to not only help a person transitioning process what's happening, but for caregivers and loved ones to process what is happening. However, we do have to find ways that don't cause more suffering, to process our own anxiety about what's happening, okay? So people who are dying at the end of life, don't not make food, right? So part of the dying experience for some people is they enjoy still smelling the food. So if it's like a holiday and you're on home hospice, make all of the food, right? People that really enjoy coffee may not be able to drink it. They may not have any desire to drink it, but they enjoy the smell of coffee. So you can still make a cup of coffee whether or not they drink it. You can bring it to them and set it there. They probably won't drink it, but they are enjoying the sensory experience of smelling the coffee while they still can, okay? And then it's also very important, even though someone is not drinking, to keep their mouth moist and wet. They make special sponge sticks, or it can have an ice chip if there's no choking hazard with that. To help for comfort, right? A dry mouth is not comfortable, but we also don't want to consume lots and lots of liquids. And this goes into something else I talk about, but a dehydrated body in the dying process is actually a more comfortable body, right? And also, going along with food, forcing someone to eat food whose body is slowing down or breaking down can actually cause some hazards. If they're having difficulty swallowing, you can actually cause them to choke if you're forcing them to eat. Okay, so it's very important, but also so difficult to hear someone say that I'm not hungry or I'm no longer eating. Okay, but hopefully this helps you understand the process a little better and help you understand, if you have family members that are in camp, make them eat, and then family members in I'm going to respect your decision camp. It creates a lot of drama, but hopefully you can kind of help. This video might help you understand each other a little bit better. So as always, if you have any questions, send me an email or put a comment below. My email will be in the description box. And I'd be happy to answer those questions or make another video to answer those questions about the death and dying process. So take good care, and don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can get notified as I upload more videos in this series on death and dying. Take care.